Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Stream of Truth. I'm Dr. Tassel Faith Janebrook,
And I'm Sean Kelly.
and today's topic is divine union 5D communication.
Woo!
Um, and if it's okay, I just want to start by just expressing so much love to everyone who's watching this now or live or recorded. If you're in a divine union, if you can feel a divine union is coming your way, is on your path, I just want to send so much love because it's a beautiful journey. It's an amazing journey. It is a journey of your own ascension and your own awakening and coming back to yourself. And it also at times is a very challenging journey and really almost invites every cell and atom of your own courage.
Yeah, for real.
So Sean and I have been on this journey for about 2 years together, and wow. And so I just so much love and honor to everyone on this journey.
Doesn't it feel too like it's been kind of like a lifetime in a way? Like we're so different from 2 years ago, so different, like for me anyway. And I actually, I see it in you too. So different. So much has changed in us. And for me, it's actually been more like I've more remembered who I truly am, not changed really, just discarded some of the stuff that was holding me back from myself, I guess. So,
yeah.
I think that's the entire purpose of it all. But in that, there's some challenge because we have to do that. We have to see ourselves for what we are and what we've been doing.
Yes.
And that's hard. Sometimes.
It feels to me at least like a constant humbling process. Constantly humbling myself to the truth of who I am, to the truth of what I'm here for, to the truth of my ego. And I don't know exactly why. It's hard. All of that's really hard.
Yeah. So can I explain why I think it's hard?
Yeah.
And this is just all about, basically it's all about communication, pretty much. So it's hard on our own because we are looking at things about ourselves like that we maybe formed in sort of an error, like someone judged us when we were young, and then we were like, oh, I'm not supposed to be this way, even though it's more of our nature to be that way. So then we discard that part of ourselves, and we sort of forget about it. So then later, like if we've been doing that for, I don't know, for me, like 30 years, then when we notice it, we're like, wow, I've been kind of a dipshit with myself, right? I've been kind of mean to myself. I've been kind of rejecting of myself. I've been kind of really dishonoring to myself. And looking at that, we can feel really guilty because we didn't know what we were doing, but in that not knowing, in that ignorance, we had error in our perception. And it's challenging because we then have to accept that, yeah, I was seeing stuff wrong. We have to just be humble and like admit it. And the challenge comes when we overlay that with guilt and shame about it. That's what makes it hard. If we didn't do that, it wouldn't be hard. So part of the reason I think we're sharing this is because I think, at least for me, I'm noticing it doesn't have to be quite as hard as I was making it. But whatever level of hard it is appropriate. To whatever degree of challenge we face, that's appropriate as well. So, so that's sort of how I see it. And then the communication becomes really challenging because we get so sensitive too. So sensitive because everything that's said, we sort of know is a reflection of us in a way. And at least this is my experience. And so then it becomes this challenge of like, what is this person saying about me? Like, what are they implying stuff about me? What are they claiming me to be? And all of that feels really bleh when people are implying and claiming stuff about you. It gets to the point where even when they're saying something like, "Oh, you're so kind," like for me anyway, when somebody says you're so kind, I just say no, I'm not. I'm I'm not any of these things. So I get a little bit rattled even by kindnesses or what we would consider society in society to be sort of kindnesses, right? Or gentleness or nice behavior. Whenever somebody says anything that is like you are, if they add any word after that, I'm like, you've misunderstood me. You haven't really seen me here. And I do know their sentiment. Like I do appreciate that they're trying to compliment. But there's a lot of implications about that expression that I'm just very sensitive to. And that's due to the ascension process and due to this need to adhere to the principles of what I see as integrous to my character or how I show up. And one of those integrous or one of those integrities is my honoring of what I am, which is not what people say I am. And so when they say I am anything, I feel very like pushed against. And so it's a matter of, for me, knowing where, like not letting that, it doesn't have to upset me, right? It doesn't have to be a problem. That's the thing. That part of it is because I'm calibrating. I'm learning how to kind of be. We're always doing this as we ascend. And then also like sometimes some of us rocket ship, which is kind of the way I've went. I was an atheist, agnostic, and then all of the sudden, I was not. So I just, and it's been crazy for me.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting as you're saying this is that as partners in our divine union and for other people in their divine union, obviously each one of us is on our own ascension path, and the divine union is in a way really accelerating that path. It's really this amazing vehicle for us to see ourselves and our shadow and move through all that. But as you said, we're each somewhat calibrating constantly, and it's almost like I guess a more authentic version of us keeps coming forth, our divine self. But it takes a little getting to know each other over and over again a bit.
Yep.
And I think I've had some shifts and integrations and callings from my soul that you've had to deal with basically and somewhat recalibrate to who I'm remembering myself to be and vice versa. And so I think this is and I think even in a more like 3D relationship that happens too. People are constantly in some sort of transformation. So it's similar in a way, but
Yep.
maybe it can feel at times really intense too.
Totally. I'd like to say too that part of the conflict that's driven out of a more just a less a partnership that's not based in this idea of divine partnership, a partnership that's based more in the older paradigms of partnership or what partnership is. This divine partnership is sort of now, it will be the new standard. It's a new thing now, and it's very sort of novel, but it will become the way.
Yeah.
But before that, when we're in the other relationships, what happens is we like Tassel said, we feel we know who they are, and then they transform a bit, and then we're like, what happened to you, right? And so then we're like, you're not you know, maybe they used to be a little bit weak or a little bit not very assertive, but then they did some evaluation in themselves. They did some learning on their own. They weren't talking about it. They just were, you know, doing their thing. Now they're a little assertive, and you're kind of like, what is this? Like, why are you being so strong? You know, that's gross. This is toxic masculinity, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you've changed.
Right.
And so that's offensive, right? And it can go either way. I'm not suggesting that, you know, like only men get this have this happen. It goes both ways, you know. As people expand, and it's only sort of when the partnership, which can be quite harmonious, whether they're aware of sort of divine partnership or not, can be quite harmonious as long as they're coming at it from sort of love and trust of each other, instead of fear of what the other may do next, or, you know, now that he's being strong, is he never going to listen to me? Is he never going to respect my feelings? Is he never going to, you know, do what I ask of him? These types of things. But these are just sort of fear of like trying to control the reality, right? So anyways, I just wanted to highlight that we go through the same thing, but it gets much, much more intense, I think, over the most trivial little nothings, trivial little bits, because we're correcting nuance. Like we're correcting subtle differences and how we perceive, because we realize, I think, at least for me, that I can't abandon my principle. And even in the slightest way, when I abandon my principle, I feel really disgusting about myself about that. Like, I just feel very disgusting. So, you know, if somebody says, oh, you did this, you did that, you did this, you shouldn't have done it. Like, if my mother were to say something like that to me, our societal programming says we should just say, I'm sorry, you know, I'll try to do better, these types of things. And although I apologize for any perceived transgression or any perceived issue, I can't say I'll do better, because that implies that I'm not perfect here now. It implies I wasn't perfect. It implies that I'm not perfect yet. It's abandoning the principle that I stand for, which is that I'm divinity here. So I can't do that. So I'll take responsibility, right? But I won't like, and I'll say, I might say something like, I notice how I could do these things a little differently, but I won't use the word better. You know, things like that. So it gets very like particular for the language, very precise, I find, for me anyway. Maybe I'm just sensitive to language. I think it depends on who you are, you know, but we'll get these sensitivities. And I think that's what causes all of this sort of challenge. And at least for Tassel and I think that's been the major thing, is one of the things is just me being so sensitive. And then Tassel on her own expansion and wanting to come together and feeling like I'm detaching, and things like that. So, and I don't want to speak for her. This is just what I feel I may have seen, in her expression. I feel like I've heard her say this about me sort of pulling away, things like that. And so anyways, you know, it's great. It's all perfect. It can be hard, but it's all good.
Yeah, I use this phrase all the time when I talk about divine union: high stakes. I think that is perhaps a bit specific, particular to a divine union, because it feels like you have met your other. It's not like, oh, there are other fish in the sea. It's not that type of, it's not really that type of feeling. It's not like, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll just go on match.com and it'll all be fine. It does not feel like that for those of us on this journey. It feels very big. And
even we'll usually find, you know, like in the case of Abraham, like her I think he was our husband, Jerry, I think was his name.
Yeah.
He passed, right? She's remained single as far as I know. She still speaks with him. Um, you know, the that's a good example. They didn't teach union stuff, but I feel that that's sort of what they were doing.
Ah, okay.
And, you know, it's unlikely that she'll really feel called to move on to another
Yeah.
man or woman
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
serious way. She may feel some lust or something and peruse
Yeah.
that and play in that. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with any of that, of course, right? Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a little bigger than the body and the identity, and so because of that, the soul feels pulled in a way,
Yeah.
and then that causes this sort of like feeling like we may die if right it feels like we may die if like Tassel was like I hope she doesn't mind that I say this, but she said something about how she was going to go dancing, and I was like, this is the beginning of the end. I'm going to die. I'm going to die now. So
I'm only I'm not trying to belittle the feeling.
no, I know
It's only empathy because it feels that way for me too. It just feels so big. And it's really interesting because I've been communicating with a lot of other twin flames, in part because we're about to host, is it next week?
the 10th, March 10th.
March 10th, a free twin flame divine union gathering. And so I've been talking to a lot of folks on the journey who are going to come to the gathering. And it is all the same story that we're sharing here. Just this people they can't explain it. They don't really understand it. Their human is befuddled about why I feel this way. The pull, even wondering if they're mentally stable because the pull is so strong, and not always having the tools to move through the partnership. So that's, I think, in part why we wanted to do this topic, because communication for us has definitely been challenging, like really challenging. And so just sort of anecdotally, I'm a therapist. I have a PhD in marriage and family therapy. So I've studied communication a ton, and I've for years worked with clients in communication and couples and everything. And yet I feel like I'm a beginner in 5D divine union communication. I'm having to toss out everything I thought about communicate, not everything, but a lot of it, and really learn much higher ways to communicate and to love. And it's been very humbling, and a lot of tears have been shed.
I wanted to play a video game, and so even just to express some sensitivity, but it didn't feel like the right time. If you guys know, there's a game that came out called Elden Ring, and it's very popular. It's got like 97% reviews. I've been waiting for it for years. I've been wanting to play it for years. And this doesn't have to do with communication, but it's just about sensitivity, which is relevant to the communication.
Yeah.
And I just really want to play it, right? My human self really wants to play it, but my higher self is like, it's not time for you to play video games. So just stop with this nonsense. It's a video game, right? Because I kept seeking. I'm like, can I find a time to do this? And last night I was like crying over it. Like, I'm crying because I can't play a video game. But I mean, it's not that I can't. I could just choose to do it. There's nothing stopping me, except the higher self is saying, this is not what you're meant to do right now. And I feel it, and I'm like, I can't abandon the principle, my principle, which is my higher self. I can't abandon that anymore. So, or at least I can if I get into a really agitated state, of course. But that agitation state is harder for me to find now. I can still find it, I think, but it's harder. So now I was just I pulled a card out of Tassel's deck, right? And I was just letting my disappointment, my human disappointment with not being able to play this video game, just let it flow out. And so this sensitivity is very new to me. And I was just crying like for like 5 whole minutes. I just wanted to rest. I'd been telling Tassel, my eyes hurt, my whole body is aching. It's shaking and quivering all the time. And I'm feeling these tingles and my spine is shaking. My muscles are clenching and then becoming bruised or swollen. Anyways, my body is changing a lot right now. As soon as the Pluto return hit, as soon as that happened, it was just like bam. And so all that's just to say that the sensitivity becomes so immense, at least on my side, that every little conversation is, my full attention is on it. My full awareness is there now with that moment, which means it is profoundly vibrant, profoundly deep, regardless of the context, regardless of anything. It is the deepest deep I've ever seen as far as my feeling of it and the intensity of it. And this is because in the past I had detached instead of been non-attached, which is a huge distinction. Detachment is avoidance, moving into the void of being nothing, which is a high state and very nice. But people confuse it with enlightenment, and then they become detached and sort of emotionless in a way. Whereas non-attachment is the allowance of all the emotion, the acceptance of all the emotion, and the feeling deeply into what it is, knowing you are all that is. You are all these things, and not pulling away from it, saying, well, I know I'm not that. I know I don't have to be that, or, it's hard to put into words. But there's a significant difference between detachment and non-attachment. And, basically a lot of what Tassel has experienced from me is my misunderstanding and applying some detachment principles to how I show up. So if I feel afraid, I was in the past, I had pulled away, right? And pulled into my shell a little, detached, right? And she feels it and she's like, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel like we're connected. But now what's happening is that because I did that a bunch, Tassel's got a little bit of PTSD probably from it. And so now what's happening is I'm not doing that anymore, or I don't feel like I'm doing that anymore. I feel like I'm right into it. I'm right here in it with her, but my expressions are changing. So as my expressions change, she's like, oh, this maybe is feeling similar to some of the detachment that I experienced in the past. At least this is my observation of it. Again, not trying to tell her experience, just expressing how I'm seeing our communication a bit and some of the challenges I'm noticing with how we're kind of receiving, and I'm taking responsibility that I am learning how to even speak from this place. And so it's a big deal, I guess. Every moment is very, very, very deep and pure. And so everything is huge, and it could feel very, very dramatic. And both of us have basically said, like, it feels very dramatic. Like, she said that to me, and then I've said to her, I don't know if I said dramatic or melodrama, but I basically said the same thing. Like, we are both sort of being dramatic a little bit because we're both really sensitive to what's going on. And so there's nothing wrong with being really sensitive. We just don't have to be dramatic about it either, right? And so I think that's kind of what we're learning to calibrate to, is a little less drama with the sensitivity, I think.
Yeah. And I think, so we have this whole namaste method of communication skills, that we've created from really the trenches of our own communication journey. Mm-hmm. And there's so many good points there, and we have a video on it, a couple of videos on it. Maybe we can link it in the episode description. But one thing that seems to be helping, and maybe this is just us getting into some tips of what we've learned about divine communication. One thing that helps me at least a lot is to start conversations, particularly maybe when you're talking about something that's a little trickier in the relationship, where there might be a little friction or difficulty, starting with some statement of like, I'm all in with you. However this conversation goes, it's sort of irrelevant to our partnership. Our partnership is here. Everything we talk about is underneath that. So I'm with you. I love you. I'm committed to you. However this goes, it'll be okay. In the Namaste method, we talk about the bridge, like always having that bridge with each other. And I guess that's like a great metaphor for what I'm saying, is that the bridge is always there. We're always a team. We're always connected. And we're understanding on that larger level that everything we're working through is perfect and is orchestrated for us for each of our own ascension path. So look, in a way, just looking at any possible conflict as really a gift. This is a gift for us to move through together and to see what's going on inside of me. Is there some shadow there? Are there some illusions, fears, stories? What's going on? What's going on for you? And just traveling the road together, hand in hand, walking each other home together.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great tip. That's great. Do you have any other tips? Do you have a whole list of them? I'm just curious. You tend to make lists. I don't know how you want to do this.
Yeah, I do have some. I have more. Do you want to like volley it? Like I say something and then you say something, or I know you have a lot. Maybe you want to do yours all at once.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple things. I can just express one of the things that I was really reviewing. Tassel mentioned that my communication was feeling impersonal. And this really struck a chord with me because to me it felt very, very connected. So, and she wasn't trying to hurt me or anything. She was just trying to say like, it doesn't quite feel personal, like. And so what I had noticed was that as we start to grow, we stop perceiving so much of the story of the specifics of the context. Like we're more in the essence of what's happening. And so I think a side effect of that is this feeling of impersonality, or this feeling of like you're not here in the story with me, and the person can feel sort of that a bit, that you're not in the narrative as much as you may have been. And so if and the other person, we can go back and forth with it. So it's not to say that one is out of it and the other, and there's no judgment, there's no comparison. That's primarily one of the problems, is our comparing to each other and of each other and ourselves to ourselves and them to us. And that's primarily what causes a lot of this challenge too. So anyways, when we're a little less involved in the story, we're not, basically the emotional charge of things is not swaying us to act certain ways, and the other can kind of pick up that we are not moved, and then that can feel a little bad, because it can feel like we're not being heard, I think, and it can feel, I think, like they're not with us in this. But I think in actuality, they're with you more than you can really grasp in that moment, because when one person's in a story and the other person is not, they're trying to usually reach their hand out to help them out of the story, because it's the stories that cause our suffering. Stories can be lots of fun, right? We can have great, lovely stories, and those are fun, and basically we play in those, but then when we're having sort of lower order stories, or lower frequency stories that are hard for us or basically based in fear somehow, we kind of tend to want the other to come with us there. And as I was saying before, the essence doesn't escape me. So I have challenge when I'm in balance. When I'm not in, if I'm not in balance, it's a different thing. But when I'm in balance, I have challenge like validating the fear. Right? We in therapy they teach to validate each other's feelings. Right? And I'm starting to see there's a lot of flaw in that approach because when we validate another's fear, we're saying, yeah, you're right, be scared in many ways. And I wrote a little post on Facebook. I compared it to when a child asks, Daddy, there's a monster under my bed or in my closet. I'm scared. You don't go to your son or daughter and say, you're right, you should be afraid. This world's a terrifying place. This monster is probably going to get you. Hide, 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 my son. You don't do that because you're validating their fear, but you're also sort of, and I'm using hyperbole, right, to you know, posture it as bigger than it is. But if you validate in even the smallest way the fear, you're agreeing with them. You're helping them claim their fear state. And so it becomes like a choice. Like for me, it's come to a place where either I try to help them see that the fear is unreal or I'm silent. And I don't know how to bend from that principle so much. I may learn how to pretend, but I don't want to pretend, especially with Tassel. I have to pretend with everyone else all day. So I don't want to pretend with Tassel. So it's, I've noticed that there's just this, like I said before, calibration that's happening. That's where both of us, and I still have some of the stories that come up, and I hear them, and I try to just let them go as they come up. But because we know that we act from story a lot of times, we can also then start to be like, oh, she's in a story or he's in a story, and presume that others are in a story because we don't like what's happening. So it's sort of like our rational, our thinking mind gets more and more resistant, and also more and more crafty in how it's perceiving what's occurring as it starts to understand that, oh, I know about stories. I know that their past stories have informed a behavior that looks kind of like this, and I think I'm seeing that again. Therefore, I presume they're in a story because I've had evidence of that before. So there's nothing wrong with it, and it's perfect. But it becomes very challenging because we end up clashing a little, right, with these things. So yeah, so that was one of my tips, and then maybe you want to give another one of yours.
Yeah, maybe I can just say a few things about what you've
Totally,
shared.
absolutely.
It's a great thing to bring up. What seems to be one of the foundational initiations in the divine union is continually choosing love and faith for the union, for the other, for yourself, and expanding outwards every aspect of your life. And I know from what you've helped me understand that is actually the major learning of being in third density. That's what we're here actually to do, is to choose love and faith in every aspect of our lives. So the divine union again is just helping us move through the lesson of this density, which is beautiful. So and I think it's super interesting that for a lot of twin flames, divine union partners, there are on paper usually a lot of challenges, maybe more so than the normal couple. So like sometimes there's a big age difference. So you and I have a really big age difference, and it's the anomaly of the society where I'm the older one. So usually it's more common if there is an age difference for the man to be the older one.
Is that more
And
common? I was curious.
I think,
You think
at
so?
least historically, I think that is more common. It does seem to be shifting.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of like female celebrities who are older who have younger counterparts. But so
You're a celebrity.
thank you, baby. So I guess my point is that I think in these partnerships, there might even be more catalyst and more sort of juice to have fear come up, and to, again, even with that, to continually come back to choosing love and faith, choosing love and faith, choosing love and faith. So it's almost like the divine union builds that muscle for us. Basically, like if I want to be with this person, and I do, every cell of my being wants to, then I'm going to have to get over my fear. There's no way to do it with my fear. If my fear is controlling, and in our situation, it was really interesting because we met just about almost exactly 2 years ago this week. And I was really in my thinking mind for about the first 9 months of it, and somewhat resisting because of how it looked on paper, because we were in different countries and the age difference and everything else. So I was really letting fear run the show for me. So anyway, all of this is to say, to piggyback on what you were saying, that this is such an initiation into choosing love and faith all the time, choosing love and faith. And because it is very high stakes and the feelings are so strong, it's intense. It's really intense. And I'm just curious, what do I think, what is the best, most compassionate, highest and best way to handle it when your partner is in fear? Like this morning, I was in some fear about our relationship. And I know for myself, I need to feel the fear. Whatever is arising in me, I have a blanket honoring system. This is just my own thing that I've landed on through my years of my own path. My current handling is that I am honoring and feeling everything that arises in me. I'm not throwing it away. I'm not suppressing it. I'm not judging it. I'm going to honor it and feel it. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I always want to do for you if you are feeling anything, including fear.
Yeah.
But I agree. We don't want to like validate it. Like we don't want to
Perpetuate it.
Right. We don't want to perpetuate it, but I think we want to like hold space,
Honor it
for ourselves and for the other. And okay, and this is the biggest challenge I think I've been noticing. I think we've both been noticing the same challenge when the other person is in a lot of fear and may possibly be even interacting with us in a way that is difficult, or pushing away or something. Can we not go into our own fear around that? And can we maintain our love and faith and balance and support and just like not bend to their fear? Can we not bend to their fear? This is very masterful.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I give my thoughts on what I feel? So first of all, I think that the highest order of compassion and love is truth. So I think that truth has to be brought. Either that or the person should be silent. However, we can find ways to deliver the truth in gentle ways. Tassel had made some comments basically saying this just doesn't feel so gentle. And I struggled with that a bit because if Tassel remembers, I was asking, I'm like, well, what does gentle mean? Like, what I perceive as gentle may not be what she perceives as gentle, and clearly it isn't, because I haven't been trying to be uh, challenging or abrasive, right? I guess abrasive would probably be the opposite of gentle, right? Maybe abrasive or
Yeah. Harsh,
harsh,
severe.
severe. Yeah, I haven't been trying to be that. So if I haven't been trying to be that, but she's perceiving it as not gentle, who's wrong? And the answer is no one's wrong, right? But there is an acceptance that we see it differently, and that's okay. So how can we come together to notice that, the reason he's acting or ungentle is because he sees gentleness differently than I see gentleness. It's not that anything's wrong. It's just that we can discuss it openly, directly, in a safe space where he can say, I don't feel I was being not. It doesn't mean that he's holding like I will never shift at all. It just means he's saying I didn't in that moment see that maybe I was being not gentle. After discussion and back and forth, the other person's side and how they feel about it, and why they feel it's not gentle, and stuff like that. If we can have that open conversation, then the person who wasn't gentle or didn't appear to be gentle can go, I see some ways I could probably do this differently. That would probably be more comfortable for the other person. So that's sort of the first thing, is that, but we also have to recognize that when we don't like what the other person's saying, it doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong. It just means they're doing something we don't really see as virtue as virtue or virtuous behavior, or we don't see it as harmonious. We have somehow felt that this expression or the type of expression has been a problem for us, or is a problem for us. So essentially we're not accepting ourselves in that moment where we're seeing ourselves in them, a part of ourselves in them, the part of us that maybe isn't so gentle or isn't as gentle the way we see gentle. That's what we're really seeing, is our capacity to not be so gentle. And we're saying, this is not how, I don't approve, I don't accept of this, right? And so then we may say, you're not being gentle. And then the other person is going to feel hurt, probably. Because they want to feel safe to express. So we have to try to, I think, step back a little bit from the how people perceive what, and the comparing of expression versus she said this, he said this, and really analyzing that. Try to step out of that and just notice that the fear that is there isn't her fear or his fear. It's sort of our fear. And if we can accept that this moment is our fear showing up, not mine, Sean's, or Tassel's, not the individual, it's the relationship's fear that's showing. And so when we see that's the relationship's fear, the collective's fear of this entity, which is in trying to establish or be in harmony and union, it's not her fear, it's not my fear, it's our fear together. And so we take the same approach that we would take with ourselves. We accept it for what it is. We try to notice it and point out where it's coming from. Where is it initiating? And it could initiate in one or the other, depending on, all we can do is try to figure out where it came from. And it may come more from one partner than another, but the only reason that it's kind of a little disturbing to the other partner is because there's a bit of remnants there. So the partner that's observing the fear, so I'm just going to pretend Tassel's afraid of something and is expressing some stuff that I feel like, I'm like, this is a bit fearful. And I need to now proceed with some gentleness as I try to be gentle, be with her, be compassionate, and hear her, accept it, basically accept that we have fear coming to us here, both of us, and what are we going to do with it, right? Are we going to avoid it, or are we going to join in this process of illuminating it, right? And so that's how I feel. And so when I feel that the choice is obvious, self-evident, that illuminating the fear and moving beyond it can help just end that cycling, just end it, right? We can move on from it. But because there's two of us, it requires both to be in consent to do that activity, to review it the way that we would review it if it was just our own fear. Like if we're out at the supermarket and we go to our car and our tire's flat and a lot of fear comes up, like, oh, how am I going to get home? What's happening? There's no other person. So we figure out how to move through that ourselves. And this is the same thing. We're just learning how to do that as a partnership. But each person has kind of different methods, different ways that they've dealt with fear in the past, different modalities of healing it and balancing. And especially divine masculine, divine feminine, they see it different, right? Divine feminine sees fear more through love, and divine masculine sees fear more through wisdom. So the divine masculine expression of how to correct fear can feel cold. It can feel impersonal. It can feel unattached. It can feel sort of dismissive, minimizing, because it's trying to say this is not real. That's its goal, is to say it's not real. Whereas divine feminine's goal is to love and to accept, right? So the divine feminine is like, you're saying my feelings aren't real, and that's hurtful because, they're my feelings and they're real to me. But the divine masculine isn't trying to say the feelings aren't real. What he's trying to say is that the belief that formed or precipitated the feelings is what informed the unreality and the suffering that's being expressed. And so basically, if I see the fear in my partner, I simply try to accept this is okay. It's okay for me. That's the hard part for me, is to just, fear is, it's the closest thing we could think of to the devil. It's, what did one of those presidents say? There's nothing to fear but fear itself. And so once you stop fearing fear, you've transcended a very high level of awareness. When you have fear come up and you don't fear the fear, then you're doing quite well. And so that's kind of the goal, is to observe your partner's fear, or what you feel is fear-based, right? And accept it for what it is. And then think about how can we together highlight or illuminate this fear in a gentle way? Because the divine masculine doesn't necessarily navigate fear gently. He navigates fear with his power, right? Not with his power and his wisdom, not his compassion for it, not his gentleness about it. And so that can feel hard. So basically we start to learn how to have both approaches and be balanced in that. And so we always talk about balancing and coming, more into our divine masculine, divine feminine internal aspects balanced. And this is just another way of that, I think, another route that happens. And so, like, if I see fear, I have two choices. That I have said this before or earlier in the stream. I basically have two choices now. I can either point at it and say, "There, I see you. Hi, fear. I see you," or I can be silent, because to do anything else is disservice to me. To validate it is disservice. To ignore what she's saying and just say, "I love you," that's okay, right? But she's not going to really feel like I'm hearing her, probably, because even though I'm being kind and I'm expressing love, she kind of wants me to engage with what she's expressing, most likely. Or she's perhaps asked questions and wants the answers of those questions or whatever it is. And I'm only using Tassel and I as an example. It goes both ways, however it happens, and that's how I am starting to see. And through our interactions just over the last few days, I've really had to sit with myself and how I'm approaching what I can perceive as some fear, and why some of my behaviors or the way that I'm expressing has felt confrontational a bit or detached. Either way, because Tassel keeps saying there's tension. I feel tension, and I'm like, it took me a bit to just be like, yeah, okay, yeah, there is tension. There is tension from me because it's tense. It's our fear, so it's in me too. It comes up in me too. It gets me tense. So we have to kind of respect, I think, that when we bring our fears up or our pains up, our whatever we're going through, when we bring it up, the other person's having an experience of that also. So if we're tense or fearful about something, the other person's gonna feel that too. And then depending where they're at with that particular category or patterning of stuff, they're either going to be totally unswayed or unmoved, or they're going to be a little agitated, maybe a little bit resistant. If they've moved through that type of fear themselves, they may feel like, I don't want to go into all this again. Like I don't want to, but your partner is kind of inviting you. And so the universe is inviting you to try to help others with it gently. Right. So I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I hope Tassel doesn't despise any of that I've said.
No, oh my gosh.
We haven't really talked about this.
Everything you just said, drop the mic on my part. I just think it's amazing, and I would so love to do that. When we,
I think we're doing it. I think we're doing it. We're trying. We're figuring it out. It's all new. It's new territory. Every day is new territory. It's all good.
When you first said, can we look at, if either one of us is having fear come up, can we look at it as our fear, as fear that's come up in the soil of our relationship? That makes me want to cry. That's so beautiful. And the first thing I thought of was my dear Michael White, the founder of narrative therapy, who was such an influence on my life. And he has this great practice that I think I've shared with you about externalizing the problem. So for a family system or a couple, or even like a business, if there's a problem, we can think of it as external to the relationship. And that, yes, the couple is the team, or the family is the team, and we're going to navigate through the problem together. So that was a teaching for me that I just loved and found it to be so helpful in couples therapy.
Yeah.
So you saying that just really so deeply resonated with that teaching that I learned many years ago. And for me, at least, just that orientation to me, I think would almost dispel the fear.
Well, yeah, it does. It does. The trick is that in the moment, I have to go, or if I'm being fearful, the person that's not in fear at the moment. And actually, the interesting thing is this is what I'm going to talk about after, but you're not usually actually in fear in the moment. You're expressing fear essence, which is basically creations of fear from your past, right? So you're not necessarily afraid. So if I say you're being fearful, then you're like, but I'm not. Right. So it can feel a little weird.
Right. And can I just say this real quick, that to me, at least, underneath probably 99% of fears around our relationship is just the fear of not being partnered or being abandoned or not moving through things together. That's really almost all my fear really lands in there. So honestly, when we take this orientation of, oh, okay, Tassel, you have a fear coming up. Okay, and you say it's our fear,
Mhm.
let's look at it together, I think the fear would immediately dissolve just by that orientation.
Yeah, I don't even think I would say, I don't even think I should say it like you have a fear coming up. It's like I should say something like, I'm noticing that we have a fear arising here.
Oh my
What do you
gosh.
think?
Oh my
Do you
gosh.
think it's a fear, or what is
Oh
this?
my gosh. Okay,
Um,
my new favorite phrase. My old favorite phrase was when you would say, you still do. What I heard you say is, so like you're listening to me and
I can't remember
hearing
what I
me.
said now. So can you repeat it? Do you know what I
Okay,
said?
you said I see that we have a fear arising right now.
Yeah, yeah. And then again, we can take Michael White's approach and externalize it from us and
Yes.
say, not, but I don't want to call it a problem though. We have an opportunity coming up to,
Ah, beautiful.
we have an opportunity to correct error of perception that has formed this fear.
Oh, amazing.
And we can do that together. We could do it apart. We can do whatever we want from there. But there's no problem here. Like there's it's all
That's
good. It's just an
beautiful.
opportunity to traverse
Gifting.
fear together.
Oh my gosh, it's an opportunity to
Yeah.
move through something that will serve us. Okay, this is mind blowing. This is one of the most amazing practices I think that has come through us. Like this is mind blowing. This is so amazing.
There's a
I
reason
think,
it's been so hard for us. That's all I'll say, you know?
yeah, I'll
There's a
just
reason.
say like I think when we really put this into practice, it's gonna transform our communication.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, will.
I
Yeah.
could really, I feel like crying like this. I feel like my life is complete. If I died tomorrow, like this was a beautiful thing that came out of my life. Honestly, I'm gonna start to cry. I think it's so, I'm crying. This is amazing. Thank you
Thank you.
for coming up with this.
We came up with
It's,
this.
it's so beautiful. It's everything.
I didn't do anything.
It's so, oh my gosh. We have to share this a lot. This feels like life-changing, this practice.
It'll probably be in the course on Thursday.
Yeah, yeah, we have a course on Thursday.
We'll get it in the course. I have some models that I've made too about all this
Oh my
stuff.
gosh. I'm kind of just in shock. Wait, I just want to get it straight. So one of us has a fear coming up. The other person can say something like, I can see that we have a fear arising in our relationship right now. And maybe even asking the other person, how would you like to move through this? Or let's brainstorm together. Like, how can we best move through this together?
Yeah, a big part of it, I think, is just noticing when one of us feels like maybe it might be best for us to just take a minute and consider how we feel, right? Because when we're deep in it, depending on how intense it is, like we're not really there the way we want to be. The way we are here together now,
Right.
we're not there like that because we've been pulled into the fear a bit.
Yes.
And then the others getting pulled in too. And I think I was saying like fear is contagious. Like
Yes.
it has to be accepted, like acknowledged, and then said no thank you.
Yes.
Because
yes.
if we don't do that, then we're gonna live in it too. So
yes.
we talk about people talk about picking up attachments from others and negative entities and things, and fear can be seen just sort of like that. We can simplify it a lot, take a lot of the mysticism and stuff out of it. Don't worry about any of that, but just notice that when another expresses fear, it invites your partner to come into it with you.
Yeah.
And participate in it. And so we can participate in it from a low order, or we can participate in it from a higher order. And we both have to kind of consent to be looking at it from the higher order, which is what I was, it's ours. It's a thing. And this is, a lot of this was not totally clear to me until, like we just went through this all. And that's why I keep saying it's fine. Like it's good. I think I was saying like yesterday, I'm at peace. My body is broken. I can't see. I feel like I'm dying. but I'm at peace. If I die, then I'm at peace. I'm good. I've relinquished the body in so many ways that the other day I couldn't see at all. I was like blind. I was literally having to use like my third eye to navigate the world a little bit. And like I couldn't see things really. So and I did okay. I was fine. So I mean, it was just these sort of things that have just constantly sort of reaffirmed for me. And you know, every single time we encounter these challenges, we always come out with one of these types of revelations, right? At
Oh my
least
gosh.
that's what I've
Yes.
noticed.
And it's interesting because so we had, I don't know, maybe a 2-hour conversation on Zoom last night where I would just say it wasn't so easy. And I think maybe each one of us was in some fear, and we're not totally coming together in this way that we're talking about now. And at the end of the conversation, I said something like, because I'd started the conversation by saying, like, I wonder if we can come together and figure out like how to have more peace in our communication. And then by the end of it, it kind of felt like we hadn't really figured it out yet. And then I said, oh, and I guess just this just didn't go very well. But you said it went perfectly. And what I took you to mean is it's all perfect, all is well. And then today, you having this amazing inspiration, I think, from everything we've been going through, like you were right. I mean, you were right then too, but just it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm always right. No, I'm just kidding. No, like I think we also like, for me, this is really hard for me because I can very easily feel like I'm the smartest person in the room and no one can compare to my, you know, I can feel that way. And so I have to be careful with that type of thing, that type of thinking. It's something that's really hindered me in the past. You know, I believe I'm past it now. I don't see myself that way anymore. But I appreciate what you said, that I was right and stuff, and I was just joking. I was voicing my ego or the identity of Sean. That's like, I'm always right. I'm the best. Right? It's just so absurd. Right? So I like to add some of that absurdity from the ego just to highlight it. That it's still there. I still hear the whispers.
I just want to highlight what you just said, that we have just been through some very challenging conversations in our 2 years of being together, some really painful, challenging conversations. And you're right. The hardest conversations have elicited the greatest treasures every time.
Yep.
And the one yesterday was really hard. And look at this beautiful treasure that has come from it. So I guess I just also want to say to all the beautiful people out there listening, just even when it seems like, oh my God, this is catastrophic. This is just, I'm in so much pain. I don't know how we're going to move forward from this. You can, you will, and there's going to be a beautiful gift on the other side of it. You can and you will, and there will be a beautiful gift on the other side of it. We've had that experience. I'm getting goosebumps like time and time and time again.
It is the gift. The
Time
opportunity
and time
itself
and time again.
is the gift.
Yes. And I love that you're using opportunity. I'll just say, like, in a 3D way, the challenging situation, which is the opportunity, is the gift. That it will bring you through. It will bring you closer than you ever were before. You will reach a new level with a new practice. Oh my gosh.
Sometimes you just got to do the, what do they call it? Like white knuckle it. Just hold the faith. And just hold it as best you can. Just white knuckle it and just let it move through you. And then on the other side of it, I'm sure that you'll feel better about it and feel grateful.
Yes. And it comes back to trusting your heart. When your heart says, this is my person, this is my person. When your heart is screaming out for that person, trust your heart. And even if all the external circumstances seem impossible, and even if at times you just are not connecting and there's conflict, trust your heart. The heart is bringing you together with these opportunities for your ascension.
Yep.
The hearts are acting like magnets to each other to bring you together to do sometimes the really challenging work for your own ascension. And I just want to share that you and I this morning both started the morning by texting each other. I think you said I choose faith. And then I wrote, I choose love and faith. Like, we start after last night, which was difficult. We started off the morning fresh, clean slate. I'm choosing love and faith in us. And then as within, so without, look what just came through this beautiful practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I'm just noticing sort of like instant manifestations of my energy.
Mm-hmm.
It, like, if I'm in fear, I almost can immediately have something come in that is a match to my fear.
You said something. I can't even remember what it was because I just let it go, but I felt a lot of fear come up, and then I almost knocked over a coffee. Like, basically my whole body like reacted, and I spasmed and almost knocked a coffee over because this fear came up. It's not that I spasmed into the coffee, it's that I didn't have full motor control. I didn't have control of myself. And it was I know what it was. It was my higher self showing me, when you're in fear, you lose control control's not quite the right word, but directiveness or agency in your being and how you're expressing. And so, like, I moved my arm in a weird way and almost knocked over a coffee. Just because I felt just a smidge of fear. And so you could think about when you stub your toe and stuff like that. That's basically what's happening. You're hurting yourself in some way.
Yes.
And the body's hurting itself then to mirror what's inside. That's what always happens. So it's a really interesting thing. And yeah, the manifestation. So it becomes our responsibility to really, really be not insightful, but introspective about why am I doing this? Why am I afraid? Why am I in a fear state, or even why am I in a joyous state as well? That deserves to be looked at also, because any elation can be deflated, right? So we and that doesn't mean detach. I've got confused about that before, about how if I get too into something, then I'll be hurt by it. It's not getting into it that hurts me. It's when I elate it, when I raise it above me as something bigger than me. That's what hurts me. So when we elate anything, it will deflate eventually. The universe will correct and humble us. So,
is it okay if I share a couple more? I know it's getting late.
Yeah. We'll do mine another day or something, because we're at like an hour and a bit.
Okay.
And I got a whole bunch of stuff. We have the course coming up, so we'll still get through my stuff.
Maybe the next stream we can do part 2.
Yeah, we could do part 2. Yeah.
Okay.
We can
do all of your stuff. Okay.
Sure.
Because the next point I wanted to share was actually came through you as well last night. So you and I have had some really great initiations around, okay, what happens when there's a topic and we might be on different sides of it. We might have different preferences around it.
Yeah.
And there were 2 examples that have come up recently. And I don't know if it's like that we were really on opposite sides, but one was around, I went dancing one night, swing dancing. And then another one has been around your divorce with your wife.
Right.
And you approached the dancing differently than I approached the divorce. And there was a lot of learning there on my side. And if I could just share what you did was, I told you I was going to go dancing. I wanted to do something fun because a lot of it was because I was missing you. We're at times not in the same place, and I work a lot. I'm a single mom running a business, blah, blah, blah. I don't tend to do much fun things, especially when you're not here. So you were leaving on a Friday, and I thought, you know what, that Friday night, I'm not going to get all sad. I'm going to just go have a little fun. I can have fun on my own, blah, blah, blah. And I went dancing. And I think, I don't want to speak for you. Maybe you can jump in anytime you want, but it was a bit hard, like me dancing with other men, as I would feel if you were dancing with other women, as I really started to think about it. But you didn't really express so much about it. You were really like, please do whatever you want. I want you to do what you want to do. I want you to be happy. And you did express some uncomfortability about it, but there was no demand, and there was no judgment. There was no judgment. There was no like, what you're doing is wrong, or what you're doing is not honoring of us, or what you're doing is, not highest and best. There was no judgment of me, and there was no demand. And this was really beautiful. This was really, really, really beautiful, the way you handled it. I might start to cry again. And eventually I came to the understanding that I too was not comfortable with it. When I thought about you possibly dancing with other women, that didn't feel good to me. And I just thought, it doesn't feel right for our relationship. He does seem uncomfortable with it. I'm uncomfortable with it. It doesn't seem right. So like, basically it gave me a lot of space to just come to my own sovereign conclusion about it on my own. And then when I shared with you, you were basically like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I think, and at the same time, you were still like, but if you ever want to, it's okay. But I think your human, at least, was like, okay, like relieved. So it was just so beautiful the way you handled that.
Thank you.
Now I'll just say, in contrast, I handled something between us differently that I do not think was the highest and best way to handle it. So it was about your divorce from your wife. And something happened, and I felt a bit triggered, and I was texting you, which it's not the right way to handle things either. And I know this, and sometimes I still fall prey to it.
I do too. We both do it. It's convenient, and it's like, it's kind of easier to get it out a bit. And yeah, it's a little, yeah.
And
we'll figure it out.
I started texting you basically my feelings about your divorce with your wife. And I was using the phraseology, is this highest and best? I was like, is this highest and best to blankety blank? And, there was judgment there. There was judgment, which you pointed out. And you were right. I was judging. And I was like really uncomfortable. But the way I handled it was not highest and best. And you came up with this beautiful question that we could ask each other in these situations. Your question was, is there a way we can both just share our preferences about these topics and ask the other person first? So what I feel like the highest and best way I could handle this in the future is, okay, there's this topic about your divorce from your wife. Sean, if it's resonant, maybe, and is this a good time to talk about this? Always ask that too. And if it's resonant with you, would it be possible for you to share with me your preferences around this topic? Like what do you want? What feels right for you? And then me listen, maybe actively listen, what I heard you say, that always works great. And then switch. And then you could ask me, I could share my preferences. So that the preferences can be out on the table, the truth can be out on the table, but there aren't demands and there aren't judgments.
Yeah.
And then there's just space. And we always talk about this, that there's space for like the highest and best thing to bubble up. And that's what always has happened when we've talked about things in this way.
Yeah. We just forget, like so I want to just be really clear, like, we're using this example because there's plenty of examples where I've showed up like totally misaligned and expressed things that weren't, in hindsight, were not, they weren't what I truly want to be, right? Going forward. They were perfect, so it's all good. But I just want to express that, like, it's, we're using this as an example just to show some contrast, I guess, in the approach of, if we approach the other saying, I would like this to be different, the other's going to feel pushed. They're going to feel pushed to conform to your demand, sort of. It's kind of a demand. It can be very gentle, a very gentle demand. Even a question can just be somewhat implying a bit of a demand, right? A bit of a request. And so we don't have to call it a demand, but a request to change is really kind of what it is. If it comes just, this has come up, and then we start to ask the questions. So it can feel a little just like pushing against the other's sovereignty. And so if we can approach it just like we had said, then now we're approaching it like, okay, I know I can probably guess too already what's coming up, because I'm probably feeling it a bit also. Like, I'm feeling that something's off with what I just said. It didn't quite land, or whatever, right? I'm feeling it. So I kind of know that something's coming, and we're going to talk about, this is going to be a thing we're going to talk about now. And then how we move into talking about it, if the other person just sort of expresses their request of you to change, it feels, and I don't like using this word, but it feels selfish. It feels narcissistic almost. Not that it means the person's a narcissist. We have to be so careful with that, because that is this rampant thing in the internet and stuff now. Everyone's couch diagnosing people. It's bananas. So don't do that. But it's this desire that they see something wrong and want to just shift it, right? Because they don't like what it is. But there hasn't yet been usually hasn't been so much consideration around how the other's feeling about it, so as well, and recognizing that they have a unique perspective, that both perspectives should be considered prior to any change being suggested, really. At least that's how I would see a partnership, right? A partnership would be, I notice that this could change, but first, how do you feel about, even if it's something simple like in the business, right? If we have a logo and Tassel's like, I kind of hate our logo now. I used to like it, but I kind of hate it now. She could just approach that with, how do you feel about our logo? And I could be like, I love it. I love it. And then she could say, well, I'm over it. I'm kind of over it. I'm feeling like we could freshen it up, or I don't know. Are you open to that? And then I could be like, hell yeah. I love what we have, but maybe what we get will be better. There's no harm in exploring it. And if we could approach everything kind of like that, then we're just very inclusive, very considerate, and non-judgmental, just, and we also have to go in, before we can do that, we have to go in and know that the other person may just go, I'm not with you on this. I'm just not. We have to like accept that they, although they want to be there for us and help us, we can't ask them to abandon themselves either. And if it feels like they're abandoning themselves, really, do you want them to? Do you want them to abandon themselves? I don't think we do. I think we want them to be themselves, and we want them to be empowered to be themselves. And at least that's how I sort of am framing it. So yeah, I thank you for sharing all that. That's great. I think we should do a part two of this, because
Yeah.
I have so much more,
Yeah.
that I've been just like a mad artist or something. I've got papers everywhere, and yeah.
Yeah. And maybe just the last things I'll say is just in my own head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to remember to do all this. I don't want to mess up. I hope I remember this.
We're
So
gonna probably forget, right? Like we gotta
Yeah,
cement it
so-
in.
yeah, just so like we're really shedding so many of the practices that we were brought up to think were the highest and best. Like
Mhm.
even as a therapist, oh, it's highest and best. Everyone just say what they want and need and see what all flows out. But that's the way we're suggesting is, I think, just a lot more humane and considerate, and again, it's this theme of togetherness.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm just bringing my desire or my discomfort to the table. It's oh, let's come together. Oh, there's this topic. What are your preferences about it? And then maybe I can share mine. Like, so this, it seems so common sense, but I think maybe this is the nut that we're really cracking here, is that there hasn't really been an energy of togetherness in mainstream relationship dynamics. It hasn't really been about together. It's been very transactional. Like, how can I get what I want?
Yeah, people haven't known what togetherness is.
Yes.
They haven't known what acceptance is.
Yes.
So it's not their fault. A lot of the teachings that are really resonant, like Michael White's and stuff, are higher consciousness.
Yes.
So you
and
can
they're
feel that.
very on the fringe.
And that's on the
of-
fringe.
Yeah,
And
very
but
on the fringe.
I was talking about this. Even Michael White's narrative is a reasoned approach to love, and to acceptance. It's about
Yes.
explaining their behavior, which makes it okay for you to accept it, because okay, I can understand because I've explained their behavior. A step further than that, even beyond this, is no need to explain. I accept them
Yeah.
as they are now. So
Yeah.
there's always these continually raising sort of perspectives, and so there is no ultimate truth, sort of, other than unity, basically. So togetherness, yeah, has not been seen by humanity, really. We've seen gurus, sages, seers, mystics, whatever, Jesus. We've seen them come as one, but now we're being invited to be one as two, and then one as more than that. So
Yeah.
togetherness is about pure partnership and not imposing anything, I think.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's a process to get to that. It's a process with two people, especially. It's a process internal to get to it in yourself, to accept yourself, and then it's a process to accept the other the same way you're accepting yourself. So you're kind of doing a process, and you have to be okay that this is a process and I'm learning, and I'm doing my best, and that's what else am I going to do? So yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think so many diamonds came out of the mine today. Amazing. Thank you.
Chantel Fowler asked a really good question. Here we have to work out what human love can be. No, here we don't understand what love is. We will not. This is very, very important. It's crucial, because in order for us to understand love, we have to see it, basically. We have to see what it is. And from this limited perspective of the human, we are unable to see it properly. So all we can really do is know ourselves as best we can, which we are love. And so we're beginning to learn what love is, like just barely beginning. We get glimpses of it and glimpses of the allness, glimpses of the infinite intelligence that's brought us here, that is us expressing itself. We get glimpses here. We will not know it until next density, which is the density of love and understanding. Here we're just choosing love or fear. Next density, we understand love. We will not understand it here. And all attempts to understand love is just rationality, reasoning, and is, confused, basically. So that's a really, really important point. Thank you for asking that. And that might not resonate with some people because they're like, no, I get love. No, you don't. I'm sorry, but you don't. Forgive me, but I don't either. I don't either. We won't. What we are here to do is choose love, despite the uncertainty of what the hell it is. We are so immersed in it that we can't even see it. And because of the veiling, we cannot see what's even happening. Right? Like we don't know, for example, if our neighbor does something weird and it bothers us, we don't know what caused them to do that. We don't know what forces are in their field enacting their wills upon him, what karmic things are going on with them, what stuff's going on with us. We're so blind. We have no idea what's going on. So we can't understand the purity of love here because basically our bodies would short circuit, more or less. I always talk about how we hold a certain amount of light. We can only go up to consciousness 1,000, and we don't understand love there. So on the logarithmic scale, the book for that is Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force. I've mentioned a couple times. I really recommend that. Just reading that will bump your consciousness up like probably 40 points. So so I didn't mean to be like assertive and too aggressive with that, but it's so critical that anything other than that is a disservice to my mind. So I just I appreciate the question very, very much though.
And just to remind everybody that Thursday, March 10th, we have a free Divine Union Twin Flame gathering on Zoom where we would like to answer any questions you might have and just share some more of our experiences and learnings. And so there's a link to register for that in the episode description.
Yes, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of people are signed up for it. I've been talking to a lot of people and I'm just, it's such a relief to talk to other people who are on the journey.
Oh yeah. I'm curious what people are going to say. I haven't talked to many of them, but we're also doing a Patreon course on Thursday. So if you join Patreon now, you'll get that free course, which is on basically this sort of topic, this vein for sure. I think we were going to call it introduction. What were we going to call it? Do you remember?
Oh, is it the dojo title?
Maybe. Yeah. Divine Union, Dojo of Divinity or something. Divine Union, something like that.
Yeah, your dojo of divinity, the divine. Yeah, something
but
like
basically, it's about whether you're in partnership or not. It's about preparing you to be, in a way, right? And if you can prepare yourself in the ways that we'll offer, then your partner is more likely to approach as well. So, if they haven't already. So, and if they've run away, they're more likely to come back because harmony can start to be found. So,
yes.
And that's not to say you have to go to that to do that, but I think we have shortcuts. So,
yeah. And I would just say, like, just to share, our journey has been really quick because we met just 2 years ago and we basically came together 9 months later. And then we did have a separation for 3 months.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, like, our union has been pretty quick.
5 months prior to our meeting, I was agnostic atheist as well. I was basically a science guy that was just like, you guys are like, I'd look at astrology and be like, you guys are full of nonsense. This is woo-woo nonsense. and then I'd just be like, this is the Myers-Briggs in like mystic nonsense, not knowing that astrology is what formed psychology. Like astrology is what created the science or scientific method of psychology.
Ah, I
Like
did not know that.
oh, you didn't? No, that's really
No.
interesting, right? Like, and now science is like, oh, but no, we know better now, even though it was originated from the mystics. Anyways,
Okay.
I get a little blah about that, but anyways,
Yeah, and I know we're so long and tight. I just want to say one last
it's all
thing
good.
is that I think part of the reason our union has been pretty quick is we both have been super committed to not wasting our triggers is maybe the way to say it.
Kitty.
Like, yeah, like really, really, really utilizing our triggers and mining them for the gold that's in there and feeling all the feelings and just like really being on the path. Yeah.
That's basically the trick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you. Click the like button. Share this with any of your friends as well. If you have any friends that are in this stuff, you may have some people that you know. Share it with your partner if you want to. And we wish you pleasant days.
Yes. So much love to everybody.
Take
Bye.
care.